There's a particular kind of financial failure that looks like success from 10 feet away.
The apartment is clean. The clothes fit.
The car is new enough to signal competence. The vacations are documented just enough to suggest taste, not recklessness. The salary is impressive in conversation. Parents feel relieved. Friends assume they've made it. Employers see a polished adult with momentum. And then one layoff hits, one bonus disappears, one parent gets sick, one market downturn arrives, and the truth comes out all at once. There was never any wealth there. Just motion. That's the hidden trap. People hear high income and imagine safety. But income and wealth are not twins. They barely know each other. Income is what passes through your hands. Wealth is what stays after your appetites, your obligations, your taxes, your debt, your vanity, your stress, your convenience, and your need to look like you're doing well have all taken their cut. A person can earn $300,000 a year and still be financially delicate. Not poor in the obvious sense. Something more dangerous than that.
Exposed. Fragile.
One interruption away from panic. And fragility becomes hard to see when the paycheck is large enough to keep covering mistakes. That's why this trap lasts so long. Low income forces reality on you quickly. High income lets you negotiate with it.
Delay it. Decorate it. Finance it. Rename it.
A small financial mistake at $40,000 hurts immediately. The same mistake at $200,000 can survive for 5 years and still look like confidence. That delay ruins people. Because by the time the consequences arrive, the lifestyle has roots, the identity has attached itself to the lifestyle, and cutting back no longer feels like discipline. It feels like death. The math behind this is much uglier than most people realize. Take somebody earning $250,000 a year.
Big number. Impressive number.
The kind of number people imagine should solve adulthood. Now strip away reality's share. Federal taxes. State taxes, depending on where they live.
Payroll taxes. Health insurance.
Retirement contributions if they're doing the sensible thing. Maybe commuter costs, benefit deductions, HSA contributions. Suddenly that heroic headline salary starts landing as something closer to $12,000 or $13,000 a month.
In some cases less.
Still very good money. But now life starts spending it before the person even notices. Housing in the kind of city where that income is common, $4,500 a month. Utilities, internet, phone, $400.
Car payment, $800.
Insurance, gas, parking, maintenance, $600. Student loans, $1,000. Groceries plus eating out because work has consumed the week, $1,500. Travel averaged across the year, $700. Subscriptions, memberships, software, cloud storage, things that nibble instead of bite, $400. Clothes, grooming, professional appearance, beauty treatments, haircuts, skincare, dry cleaning, all the invisible maintenance attached to high-income environments, $600. Helping family, gifts, weddings, birthdays, emergencies, social obligations, $700. Already, we're in the neighborhood of $11,000 to $12,000 a month. And notice what's not here.
No private school. No mansion. No yacht.
No cartoon version of excess. Just a very normal, very respectable, very expensive modern life. This is the point where most people misunderstand the problem. They imagine financial danger comes from wild irresponsibility,
gambling, designer binges, secret addictions,
dramatic recklessness. Sometimes, sure. But more often, the trap is built out of reasonable things stacked too high. A nicer neighborhood because the commute was crushing you. A reliable car because you were tired of repairs. A gym membership because health matters. Convenience because time is scarce. Good clothes because presentation affects earnings. A vacation because you were burning out. Takeout because you got home at 9:30. A house cleaner because the week disappeared. Better flights because you can't arrive wrecked anymore. A more expensive apartment because you told yourself you deserved peace. Each decision has logic. That's what makes the trap so effective. Nothing feels insane in isolation. But personal finance does not collapse in isolation. It collapses in aggregate. That's the great misunderstanding of high earners with low wealth. Their life isn't broken because of one absurd choice. It's broken because dozens of justified upgrades slowly form a machine that converts income into upkeep. And upkeep is the enemy of wealth. The more your life costs to maintain, the less of your income is actually yours. That's the first hidden mechanism. The second is more brutal. Every increase in income invites a corresponding increase in expectations. At $80,000, a used car is practical. At $150,000, the same car starts to feel like a statement. At $250,000, some people begin to feel embarrassed by things they once felt grateful for. Nothing changed about the car. Identity changed. And identity is expensive. A raise does not only change what you can afford. It changes what begins to feel acceptable. It redraws your emotional baseline. It quietly moves the line between need and beneath me. This is why more income so often fails to create more peace. Because peace does not come from the size of the check. It comes from the size of the gap between what comes in and what must go out. That gap is the whole game. A person making $90,000 a year and keeping $25,000 of it is building power. A person making $300,000 and keeping $15,000 is performing power. From the outside, the second person looks stronger. In reality, the first person is becoming harder to control. That's what wealth really does. It makes you harder to control. When you have reserves, you can wait. You can walk away. You can say no. You can survive a bad quarter. You can endure a mistake without becoming a servant to whoever offers rescue. Without reserves, high income just means you are well paid and still owned.
Owned by monthly burn. Owned by fixed costs.
Owned by the need to keep producing. Owned by a lifestyle that must be fed. This is why so many high earners are strangely anxious. They are not living with money. They are living under it. The number looks big, but the margin is thin. And thin margins create emotional volatility. If your life costs $12,000 a month and you take home $13,000, then every month begins with pressure, not freedom. The job is no longer a path to wealth. It becomes the oxygen tank. Necessary. Constant. Not optional for even a short period of time. That changes a person. It changes how they negotiate, how they tolerate disrespect, how they evaluate risk, how long they stay in roles they hate, how often they confuse exhaustion with ambition. A lot of high-income people think they are climbing when they are actually narrowing their options. Because their income rose, but their dependence rose faster. That's the ratio nobody brags about. Dependence to income. Lifestyle to margin. Burn rate to resilience. Everybody loves talking about earning power. Almost nobody wants to talk about sustaining power. But sustaining power is wealth. Wealth is not the ability to spend a lot. It's the ability to remain okay when earning temporarily slows, stops, shifts, or disappoints. That distinction becomes obvious the moment life stops behaving. And life always stops behaving. A recession shows up. A company merges. A senior executive gets replaced. A compensation structure changes. Stock grants underperform. The bonus pool shrinks. A parent needs care. A child arrives. The marriage cracks. The body sends the invoice for years of neglect. This is where high-income illusions die. Because if you've built your life around a best-case version of your earnings, then any normal disruption feels catastrophic. Now let's stretch the math forward, because the future is where this trap becomes unforgiving. Imagine two people. One earns $300,000 a year. Sounds like the winner already. But after taxes and spending, they save $20,000 a year. That's not nothing. But it's not what people imagine when they hear the salary. The other earns $120,000. After taxes and a much simpler lifestyle, they save $30,000 a year. 10 years pass. Ignoring investment growth for a moment, the first person has saved $200,000 on $3 million of gross income. The second person has saved $300,000 on $1.2 million of gross income. The public ranking and the private ranking are completely reversed. One person looked richer. The other became richer. And that inversion happens all the time. Because income is loud. Wealth is quiet. Income announces itself in restaurants, apartments, watches, schools, neighborhoods, conference badges, vacation photos, and the speed of small decisions. Wealth often looks underwhelming at first glance. More buffer. Less urgency. Fewer financial theatrics. Lower monthly obligations. More patience. Less need to prove. That last part matters more than people admit. The hidden trap is not just math. It's performance. A lot of high-income lives are built as public evidence. Evidence that the years of pressure meant something. Evidence that the degree paid off. Evidence that the sacrifice was justified. Evidence that the person has joined the class they always felt outside of. Once spending becomes symbolic, numbers stop being numbers. They become self-worth. The nicer apartment is no longer shelter. It is proof. The luxury car is no longer transportation. It is relief. The expensive neighborhood is no longer geography. It is identity correction. The private school is no longer education. It is moral reassurance that your children will not slide backward. And once money begins carrying psychological weight, people stop managing it cleanly. They defend it emotionally. They rationalize. They delay. They call spending necessary, when what they really mean is, I am afraid of what this would say about me if I stopped. This is why otherwise intelligent people can remain trapped for years. It's not because they can't do arithmetic. It's because the arithmetic threatens the story. If the person earning $200,000 still feels financially insecure, then one of two things must be true. Either their structure is wrong, or the number they worshipped was never going to save them. Most people would rather work harder than face that second possibility, so they stay in motion.
Another raise. Another promotion.
Another side deal.
Another year.
Another promise that once they hit the next threshold, then they'll finally start building wealth. But thresholds are deceptive. Every salary milestone comes with a temptation to reclassify luxuries as standards. You don't think, I am inflating my lifestyle. You think, I'm finally living like an adult. Or worse, I'm living like someone at my level. At my level.
A devastating phrase.
Because now you're not spending according to your values. You're spending according to your ranking. And rankings are bottomless. There is always another neighborhood, another school, another car, another vacation tier, another version of normal that makes your current life feel insufficient. If you let the market define normal, you will never get ahead of it. Because the market is not trying to help you feel secure. It is trying to turn each increase in income into permanent new demand. That's why high earners often end up with lives that are optimized for appearances and terrible for compounding. Compounding needs leftovers.
Compounding needs time.
Compounding needs the discipline to leave money alone. A high-income lifestyle often attacks all three. It reduces leftovers because expenses swell. It reduces time because the person works harder to sustain the swelling. And it reduces discipline because stress makes convenience feel like survival. This is one of the ugliest loops in modern professional life.
Work more to earn more.
Earn more to afford the life created by working more. Become too tired to manage money well. Spend more for relief. Need the job even more.
Repeat.
That is not a wealth engine. That is a stress treadmill with premium branding. And the consequences are not merely financial. They are temporal. If your cost of living is low and your savings are high, then 5 years of work can buy meaningful freedom.
A sabbatical. A career pivot. A slower chapter.
Room to take a risk. If your cost of living expands to meet every rise in income, then 10 more years of work may buy you nothing but maintenance.
Same office. Same stress. Same Sunday dread.
Just better furniture and slightly nicer hotels. That trade is devastating when you finally see it clearly. Because it means some people spend the prime of their lives converting health and attention into income, then convert that income into objects that require them to keep sacrificing health and attention. They are not accumulating escape velocity. They are purchasing heavier chains. There is also a timing problem hidden inside this trap. High-income years often arrive later than people expected.
After school. After debt.
After a decade of under-earning. After finally entering the field, climbing the ladder, making partner, getting into management, hitting senior levels. By the time the bigger money comes, the person feels behind. And people who feel behind rarely build wealth efficiently. They try to correct emotionally. They compress all the symbols of success into a short period.
Better home. Better clothes. Better vacations. Better dining.
Better everything. It feels like catching up. Like entering the life they postponed. But you cannot spend your way out of delayed gratification. All you do is turn late success into immediate obligation. And obligation multiplies quickly. A bigger mortgage is not just a payment. It is a decade-level commitment. A luxury car is not just a purchase. It is an upgraded baseline. A private school bill is not just tuition. It is a recurring identity contract. An expensive social environment is not just a friend group. It is a recurring comparison engine. Once these systems lock in, pulling back is financially smart but emotionally violent. Because now you're not cutting costs. You're dismantling a version of yourself. That is why so many people wait too long. They would rather stay stressed than grieve the image. But numbers do not care about image. If you spend 95% of what you bring in, your salary is a spectacle, not a solution. If your monthly obligations require uninterrupted excellence, you are not secure. If one missing bonus can destabilize your year, you are not wealthy. If your net worth is weak compared to your earnings history, the market has been paid more than your future has. That is the real accusation hidden inside this title.
High income, no wealth. Not bad income.
Not low opportunity.
No wealth.
Which means the problem isn't always scarcity. Sometimes the problem is leakage. Leakage through status. Leakage through debt. Leakage through convenience. Leakage through exhausted decision-making. Leakage through taxes that rise because spending required the income in the first place. Leakage through large fixed costs that leave no room for time to do its work. And time is everything. You do not build wealth in a moment of brilliance. You build it by preserving enough surplus, long enough, that your money starts working harder than your self-presentation. That usually looks boring. It looks like living below what your peers normalize. It looks like resisting upgrades you can technically afford. It looks like keeping your burn rate lower than your ego wants. It looks like treating raises as margin expansion before lifestyle expansion. It looks like valuing optionality more than visible proof. Optionality is one of the most underestimated feelings in the world. Knowing you could leave. Knowing you could rest. Knowing you could survive. Knowing a bad year would not erase you. That feeling does more for a human nervous system than most luxury purchases ever will. Because wealth is not really about consumption. It's about reduced fear. Reduced fear in your decisions. Reduced fear in your relationships. Reduced fear in your calendar. Reduced fear when markets turn ugly. Reduced fear when work becomes political. Reduced fear when you finally ask what you actually want. That is why the hidden trap is so tragic. It takes people who have done the hard part, the earning part, and persuades them to miss the entire point. The point was never to become someone who can spend a lot. The point was to become someone who doesn't have to panic. But panic wears expensive clothes now. Panic has a rewards card. Panic lives in luxury buildings. Panic gets upgraded boarding. Panic orders convenience and calls it efficiency. Panic can look incredibly polished. Which is why so many financially strained high earners go unnoticed, even by themselves.
Until the spreadsheet gets honest. Until the income pauses.
Until the math finally outruns the story. And when that happens, the revelation is brutal. The person thought they had built a fortress. What they had actually built was a stage set.
Beautiful front.
No structure behind it. If there is a number that matters more than salary, it is this. How many months could your life continue, comfortably and with dignity, if your income disappeared tomorrow? That number is the truth serum. That number does not care about gross pay, job title, company prestige, or neighborhood. That number tells you whether your money created freedom or merely funded a performance. And performances are exhausting.
They demand maintenance. They demand audience.
They demand consistency. They demand that you keep earning at the level required to protect the illusion. Wealth asks for something very different.
Less performance. More permanence.
Less urgency.
More patience.
Less proving.
More preserving.
That shift sounds simple. It is not simple. It asks a person to resist not just temptation, but social gravity. It asks them to become unimpressed by things that impress almost everyone around them. It asks them to separate what feels successful from what is actually durable. That is harder than making money. Making money is often a professional skill. Keeping it is an identity skill. And identity is where this battle is usually won or lost. Because if a person still needs their life to look expensive in order to feel successful, then higher income will rarely become wealth.
It will become camouflage.
Better camouflage every year. But camouflage is not protection. When life turns, camouflage burns fast. What remains is wealth.
Or the absence of it.
And that is the hidden trap in its cleanest form. High income can hide weak foundations. It can disguise dependence as success. It can make a person look powerful while making them privately easy to break. So the real question isn't how
much you make.
It's how much of your life your money has actually liberated. Because if the answer is not much, then the number on your paycheck is not a measure of freedom. It's just the rental price of your current identity. And that is one of the most expensive things a person can ever buy.